Hey guys, if this is your first time to my channel, hello and welcome. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Emily and today I am going to be taking you through a Shop My Stash video all about the new Manny MUA Lunar Beauty palette release. Manny MUA is coming out with the new Life's Drag palette. It is going to be releasing on June 2nd at 11 a.m. PST. And we were just shown the inside of the palette just a few days ago. Trendmood dropped the photo, finally exposing what the inside of the palette looked like. Half the palette was neutral tones and half the palette was more colorful tones. And I feel like this is a really cool concept because not only can you please the neutral side of the beauty community, but he is also pleasing the more colorful side of the beauty community. For me, I have so many colorful eyeshadows in my collection that I wanted to put together just a little mini mock palette of the colorful side of the Life's Drag palette. So before I get started showing you guys the colors that I have in my collection that I was shopping my stash for, I'm gonna go ahead and give a very quick disclaimer here. I make videos like these on my channel to inspire people that might have similar colors in their collection to pull them out and use them. For me, I was inspired by Manny's palette and I thought it was very pretty. So I went into my collection and tried to pick out some shades that I felt like were comparable to some of the colors in Manny's palette. I've seen videos on YouTube like this before. Lauren May Beauty makes some, Angelica Nyquist makes videos like this on their channels, and I have been inspired to go into my collection and pick out eyeshadows that are similar to up-and-coming palette launches. Then I don't have to go out and spend the $45 on the palettes. So I find these really helpful for me. I also find these videos really helpful for when a palette comes out and I'm interested in certain shades and I happen to already have some that are similar in my collection, but I might be missing out on one or two of the eyeshadows in the palette. And when I'm watching Lauren or Angelica do videos like this on their channel and they suggest a shade that might be similar to one of the shades in the palette that I'm looking at, then I can go out and just purchase that one single shade and add to my collection that I feel like I'm missing out on that the palette has to offer. So essentially, videos like this are just meant to inspire people who happen to have a lot of single shadows or a lot of eyeshadow palettes in general just to shop their stash, and it's inspiring for me to remind myself to shop my stash and try and pick out similar colors that might work instead of going out and buying the whole palette. Now, I am not at all saying that you should go out and buy these single shadows over buying the palette. I think Manny's palette is awesome, and I think that if you're interested, you should definitely buy it. If I didn't already own a bunch of colorful shades in my collection, then I would definitely go out and buy the Manny palette. And I think that if you don't have a whole lot of colorful shades, or if you're just into Manny's palette, you should definitely buy it because I'm sure it's going to be awesome. But this video is for the people like me who happen to have a lot of colorful shadows in their collection and may have been inspired by the Manny palette and want to look in their collection and see what they have lying around. And if you happen to have, say, 4 of the shades out of the 6 that I'm going to show here, and you do want to add the extra 2 into your collection, then I just have some options for you, and you can go out and purchase the 2 shades instead of purchasing the whole palette. So yes, before you comment down below, I am already aware that buying all of these shades would cost more than the palette. That is not what this video is about. It's just about me shopping my stash. So with the housekeeping and the disclaimers aside, let's go ahead and get right on into the colors that I chose. So here are the colors in my collection that I felt like were close enough color dupes for Manny's palette. I really do like the colors that he put together. I know some people were comparing them to Sugarpill, and I do have 2 Sugarpill shades in here, but I think it's a really pretty color combination, and he was going for a drag palette, or at least a half drag palette. So I can definitely see why he went for the more bright, kind of rainbowy, Sugarpill-ish colors, because when I think of drag makeup, I think of very bright, fun, colorful looks. So the first colorful shadow that Manny had in his palette is called Campy, and it is the bright primary yellow. And I wanted to put in Sugarpill's Butter Cupcake because I had this one lying around in my collection, and to me, this is the perfect representation of Campy. It is a very strong, bright, matte primary yellow. The second colorful shade that Manny has in his palette is called Pageant Queen, and it's this beautiful, rich purple shade, and I decided to pick out from my collection the shade Wild Berry by Clionadh. It's a very similar toned shadow. I think that the purple in Manny's palette is just a little bit more cool toned purple, and mine is just a touch more warm toned purple, but it's a very similar shade, and I feel like I could still create a very pretty purple look with the color. So Manny put in this beautiful Seafoam green matte shade, and I already happen to own the Strobe Cosmetics Creepy Cute palette, so I picked out a shade from that palette. And this Seafoam green up here is the shade Creep It Real from the Creepy Cute palette by Strobe Cosmetics. As you can see, he's barely hanging on here because I have depotted him a couple times from the palette, and then I've glued him back in and depotted him again and then glued him back in. So he's struggling to hold on here. But it's a very similar color to the one in Manny's palette. And I did see some people on Instagram pointing out that if you have a lot of Sugarpill shadows, the shade Mochi is very similar as well. If you do happen to own a lot of these colorful shadows in your collection and you were inspired by the Manny palette to put together something that was kind of similar, I did want to give a single shadow option because the one that I picked out is from a palette and Sugarpill's Mochi is kind of expensive. So one that I found on the internet that seems to be pretty similar to the Seafoamy teal green that Manny has is the shade Seafoam by Sydney Grace, and that shade is only $5. So if you were inspired by the green shade that he picked out and you didn't want to go spend $10 on the big Sugarpill pan that is Mochi, then you could just pick up Sydney Grace's Seafoam. So Manny put in this beautiful hot pink that was a little bit more cool toned, and when I saw that shade I was immediately inspired to pull out my Sugarpill shadows and to reach for the shade Dollipop. It is a very similar color to the one in Manny's palette. If anything, Dollipop might be just a touch more cool toned, but it still is very similar. It's that beautiful hot blue-based pink shade. I did also see that Manny put in a beautiful red matte called Snatched, and in some of the promo photos it looks a little bit more berry toned, and in some promo photos it looks a little bit more primary red. Personally for me, I like berries a little bit more than primary reds, so I picked out Coastal Scents Hot Tamale. This shade is very close to the one in Manny's palette color-wise, but it's just a touch more berry toned, and that's just personal preference. I just really like berry shades, so I decided to put this in my little faux Manny palette instead of a primary red. And the last colorful shade that Manny put in his palette is this gorgeous matte true aqua blue. So I decided to pull out my Strobe Creepy Cute palette yet again and pop in the shade Cold Shoulder. This shade is a beautiful matte true aqua blue, and I think it's just so stunning, and it really did give me the vibes that the Manny shade gave me. If you don't own the Creepy Cute palette, but you wanted to pick up a shade that is kind of similar because you were inspired by Manny's color, then I know that Sugarpill has the shade Kimchi, and that shade retails for $10. And again, Sydney Grace does have one that seems to be pretty comparable color-wise, and it is called Oasis, and that retails for $5. If you are inspired by the blue shade from Manny's palette and you wanted to just get that shade, then you have two different options. One of them is a little bit higher of a price point, but you get more product and more bang for your buck, and the Sydney Grace route is a little bit cheaper, you get a little bit less product, but both of them are still beautiful matte aqua blues. But that is all the shades I have to show you. Those are all of the comparable shades that I have in my collection to the new Manny MUA Lunar Beauty Life's a Drag palette. Now, like I said, this is not in any way saying go buy these instead of that palette. By all means, please spend your coin on that palette because I think it's really pretty, and if I didn't already have these shades, I would totally buy that palette. Now, personally for me, I left the neutrals out of this palette because I'm not really into neutrals, so that's another reason why I'm not going to be buying the palette, but I totally see why he put them in there, and I think it was a pretty good idea. The shadows that I showed today are not formula dupes, and they might not even be 100% color dupes, but personally for me, I just wanted to go into my collection and pick out some things that I felt like were similar, put them together and use them in similar ways that I would use the Manny palette if I didn't already have these shadows. But with that being said, that is going to wrap up today's video. I hope that you were able to find this helpful, and I hope that if you've been looking at Manny's palette and you know you have some similar shades in your collection, I hope this inspired you to shop your stash and maybe save a little bit of coin. And if you are getting the Manny palette, please let me know down below because I'm sure it's going to be a great palette and I'm sure it's going to sell really well. I'm really excited to see what people have to say about it. I do hope that you consider subscribing if you have not already. I have all sorts of makeup goodness happening on this channel, so if you have not already subscribed and you would like to, I would love to see you hit that button down below. I hope you are having an absolutely fabulous day wherever you are, and thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next time. Bye!